Hey there, Latin 3 mostly, and then also maybe the challenge test, Latin 3, and also AP if you need the review. We're going to talk now about the dative uses of the gerunds and the gerundives. Okay, so I'm going to hit you with the easy one first. So gerunds and gerundives can be used with the dative as indirect objects. That's really easy. It's as you'd expect it, right? So you need a transitive verb and you need a direct object, and then you're going to have the indirect object being the gerund or the gerundive. So for instance, lupo papillas pueris nutricandis, and then denicit, right? So, sorry, everything's backwards for me, and I apologize. The she-wolf lowered her nipples to the suckling boys. What kind of boys? The suckling boys, right? Because we're talking about Romulus and Remus. So she lowered her nipples to the boys who were suckling, right? That's as clear as an indirect object is going to get. Now, because nutricandis is modifying pueris, we know that it's a gerundive, right? It's an adjective. You could technically translate that if you really wanted. The she-wolf lowered her nipples so that the boys could suckle. That's totally fine. But really it works better this way because we're using the indirect object. If we wanted to make it purpose, then there's a couple ways we could do that. As you saw in the previous videos, it could be genitive, and as you're going to see in the next video, it could be accusative. But right now, these are the indirect object boys. Okay. Now the next one. Let's see. Lupa corpus totum eius allendo tradebat. The she-wolf gave her whole body over to nursing. So, you know, the noun that she gave her whole body over to was the allendo, was the nursing, right? So she just flopped over and let the boys come and nurse her, I guess. So that's what she did. So that is a noun down there, right? So that is a verbal noun. That is the thing that she gave her whole body over to. In the previous one, just because of the use of how it's being used, or the way that it's being used, nutricandis is modifying the pueris, right? So, and there's ways that you could have done it otherwise, but you know, that kind of highlights the difference. So that is indirect object. Pretty clear. Okay. Now let's take a look at dative of reference. Pretty easy, pretty clear, but there's some keywords here that I want you to see. I thought I was going to fit them all on one slide, so forgive the jammed up nature of it. The dative of reference is usually with adjectives of suitability, like idoneus, like this is ideal. Now, when you say something is ideal, usually you'll say it's ideal for something. And that automatically gets you to a dative of reference, right? So the lupa pueros idonea allendo erat. The she-wolf was ideal for feeding boys. Okay, for feeding. That is a dative of reference. What was she ideal for? For the verbal noun that is feeding. Okay. The second example, the lupa idonea pueris pascendis erat. Now this is where it gets fun. The she-wolf was ideal for feeding boys. It's kind of the same thing, except grammatically you'll see something different happening here, right? What kind of boys was she ideal for? The feeding kind, right? And we know that it's modifying the it's modifying the boys because it matches number, case, and gender. Therefore, it's a gerundive. So we translate it as an adjective, right? Whereas up here, she was ideal for the verbal noun that is feeding. And what was she feeding? The direct object, that is the boys. So you have the exact same words, but again, and we saw this with the genitive, right? With the love of licking boys versus the love of licking boys. Here, she was ideal for feeding boys. And down here, she was ideal for feeding boys. So we do it in tone in English, which allows us all kinds of fudge work and stuff like that. But in Latin, it's very clear. We know that the second one is talking about the boys. That is the boys for whom she is ideal. And pascendis is modifying them, so it's gerundive. Up here, she's ideal for the noun that is the feeding, and then she feeds a direct object. So those are the two kinds of dative. It's essentially very cut and dry, to be honest. If you see any form of idoneus, you know you've got a dative coming. Whether it's a gerund or gerundive, I don't know, but that's for you to figure out. Again, if it's modifying any nouns, then you know that it's gerundive. And if you see, just seeing it used as an indirect object, you know that it's an indirect object. They're very, very cut and dry. The next video we will take a look at is the accusatives. And there's 3 uses of the accusative. And it can get a little jumbly because you're going to get mad at me. But I promise you I'll get you through it, and always you can pause and scrub back and stuff like that. So anyway, my thumb is ideal for pushing the button.